Need to restock inventory, cover seasonal dips, or manage payroll? OnDeck's small business line of credit provides immediate access to funds, up to $100,000, exactly when your business needs it. With flexible draws, transparent pricing, and full control over repayment, you can tackle unexpected expenses without missing a beat. Apply today at ondeck.com, and funds could be available as soon as tomorrow. Depending on certain loan attributes, your business loan may be issued by OnDeck or Celtic Bank. OnDeck does not lend in North Dakota. All loans and amounts subject to lender approval.
Welcome to Season 3 of the Knack 4 Business Podcast. Over 300 episodes strong, we're here to ignite your entrepreneurial spirit with fresh insights, networking gems, and creative strategies that elevate your game. Are you ready to discover what your Knack 4 business truly is? Your hosts are Bernie Franz-Grota from Creative Insight and Wayne Pratt from Motivate You Inc.
Today's topic is From Pixels to Profit. From an audience perspective, how can you protect your business's most valuable digital assets, photos, videos, and important files, so you don't lose them to accidental deletion, hardware failure, or cyber threats? You know what? That's what some of the stuff our guest is going to be talking about. And our guest today is Andrew Darlow from Andrew Darlow Images International. Andrew is an award-winning photographer, author, inventor, and coach with over 25 years of experience helping individuals and businesses preserve and protect their most valuable digital assets, photos, videos, and important files. His expertise has been featured in major media outlets, including People Magazine, Animal Planet, Reader's Digest, and Professional Photographer Magazine. As the author of 4 award-winning books and inventor of Gallery Pouch, a custom protective solution that for photographers and artists, Andrew continues to innovate in the world of imaging and digital preservation. Get ready to dive into the insights and branding of business and keeping your digital legacy safe. Andrew, welcome. Do you have a favorite quote or saying or something you want to impart to the crowd?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm going to pick something from the late, great Ansel Adams, one of my heroes in the world of photography and life. And here's his quote. "The negative is the equivalent of the composer's score, and the print the performance." That applies to taking a negative from a camera and putting it in the dark room and making the most out of it, which is what Ansel Adams did over and over again. But it has so many more meanings. For example, if you take a photograph with a digital camera, you can turn it into many things. I generally prefer to get whatever I can in the camera and then maybe optimize it here and there. But it's almost like a blank canvas. It also has a lot of applications in other parts. I believe that when we come into the world, we're like a negative, and it's up to many things and our own will and drive to turn it into a performance.
So the art of photography sounds simple until you realize you have to understand the hardware, the setting, the lighting, your lens, which is part of the hardware. And if you're doing old school, then managing the negative and prepping it and then printing from it. And it's just a large range of chemistry, mechanics, and artful eye. What brought you into this space and say, hey, that's my career path?
Probably started when I was very young. My dad would always take pictures using slide film and then project them on the screen. It was like magic. As I got a little bit older, I got my own camera. I went on a school trip to Washington, D.C., and I can remember bringing those images home afterward and looking at them, and I thought it was really amazing. The big thing that really cemented my love of photography and set me on a path was stepping into the darkroom in high school at the yearbook office. I started taking pictures for the yearbook and the school newspaper, and when I saw the black and white images appear out of nowhere.
Cash flow crunch? OnDeck's small business line of credit gives your business immediate access to funds, up to $100,000 right when you need it. Cover seasonal dips, manage payroll, restock inventory, or tackle unexpected expenses without missing a beat. With flexible draws, transparent pricing, and control over repayment, get funded quickly and confidently. Apply today at ondeck.com. Funds could be available as soon as tomorrow. Depending on certain loan attributes, your business loan may be issued by OnDeck or Celtic Bank. OnDeck does not lend in North Dakota. All loans and amounts subject to lender approval.
I was amazed, and it was like magic to me, and that set me on my course.
Wow. What made you think that whether there's money in them, there are hills? Someone could have a passion. They want to be a Rembrandt. You have a gift and you kind of explore it. The cash might be a little further out than the next day. So How did you know that there's money to be made in that space?
At that time, I had no idea. The reason it did is because in my senior year, I was the head of a business club, and the advisor, who was a wonderful person, told me about an opportunity to apply for a partial scholarship to study for 8 weeks in Japan. I received it, and it was absolutely wonderful. I went to Nara, Japan, near Kyoto, and I had a wonderful homestay family there. And I brought my point and shoot camera with a lot of film, and I started taking pictures of everything around me. When I got home, I made prints, put them in albums, and I realized the power of photography. So that experience was really the big impetus for me loving photography, but I still didn't know how to actually earn money doing it, which then led a few years later, after I got my business degree, to work for a company that my grandfather started about 100 years ago in the printing industry. And through a number of things that happened, starting with me working in the area where they did large format printing for buses and trade shows, one of the salespeople brought in a project, which was a baby products catalog. And I was a fly on the wall. I helped out a bit, and they rented this wonderful, fairly new digital photography system. And that then led to my dad and others making a decision to build a studio. I started to run it because I had been studying photography in different ways, even though I didn't have a degree. I was taking classes at the School of Visual Arts and other places in New York City by professionals who were doing it day in and day out. So I jumped in. I had a mentor or two. I started doing work for companies like the Body Shop Cosmetics. I was photographing Rolex watches, which would be on the front page of the New York Times, shoes, diamonds, all kinds of fun stuff came in. And I learned the whole process. And that's my jumping in to make it a career.
Andrew, thanks to the iPhone, there's never been more imagery out there. What do you see the biggest difference between a professional photographer and someone shooting off an iPhone for themselves?
Wow. There's really no difference. And it's all about how it's used and what it's for. Some people may get $1 million, and some people just want to do a talk in front of a nonprofit group about something that they're passionate about. There's no real difference. Of course, there's many years that usually go into learning techniques, which could make the images look more professional. But otherwise, when the equipment is the same, it really comes down to how it's going to be used.
When you're taking a picture, it's a composition, right? And if you're doing a Rolex watch, obviously the watch has to be in there. The color, the hues, the background. How do you sort out what elements to bring forward, what to highlight, what not to highlight, or even just make it look a little bit vague? How do you figure out what elements to bring into an image?
It depends a lot whether you're being hired to do that image or whether you are doing it yourself, like for fine art, which I do quite a bit of. So if it's fine art, then anything goes. It's whatever you want. If you want to sell it, then someone else would have to like it enough to purchase it. But when you're doing professional work, I used to do a bunch of CDs and DVDs for BMG, Bertelsmann, which before was like Columbia House. They would give me a nice drawing of all the liner notes and CDs, and I would stack them up at different levels. I really didn't have much creative license there, but I got the job done and I gave them what they wanted. It's nice when a client actually knows somewhat what they want, but then they work together with the photographer or another artist to bring it to another level. One technique that I've learned is to do the shoot the way that the client wants to do. And then as long as there's a little extra time, say, you know what, can we just try this one other way? And often what happens is magic.
You prefer color or black and white?
That's a loaded question. Both. It's if you had a son and daughter, do you prefer boys or girls? Each one has its own power and beauty and purpose. I would say color is wonderful when there's a reason for color. That could be a flag from a country in an image, and that could really make a difference. Or there could be something very distinctive like a certain company's product, which may have a logo, then it may really make a difference. But I love both.
Andrew, is AI going to replace or enhance the photographer?
Oh gosh, another difficult one. I think it's in many cases cheating because I believe that a camera should be used if you want to make a still image. And now with the video, that's completely crazy. I'm not even going to comment on that. For still imagery, I feel it's best to take an image with a camera. It bothers me that many of those models are trained on the internet at large, not an approved group of photographs. And I won't go into the ones that I'm pretty sure are built on an approved group of photographs. But if it's just trained on the internet, I have an ethical issue with it. I also have an artistic issue with it, and I'm not a big fan. But I know that it's being used by both professionals and amateurs in many ways. So I will leave it at that.
We talk about photography. Our parents growing up have taken pictures, and we've gone everything from, hey, here's black and whites because the images are from when they were kids from the 30s and 40s, the color, etc. Over time, the chemical composition of some of these images will degrade, which is unfortunate. How, and you talk about preservation, how do you retain old images? And even if they're on death's door, so to speak, how do you bring them back so you have the most current? Because I heard at one point in time, someone says, listen, if you store an image electronically, it has a shelf life of X number of years, like 20 years. That doesn't make any sense to me, but it's not my space. How do you keep the family heirlooms intact? It doesn't have to even be family heirlooms. It could be the corporate heirlooms, the history of things that have come across.
Yes, it's very difficult. The best thing you can do, let's talk about data first. The key is to get it onto new storage technologies every 5 or 10 years and to always have a number of different copies. But the key is to never just let it sit. If one hard drive with all of your data sitting on a shelf for 20 years is not a good formula. So you want to make sure that you have at least 2 or 3 of them. And as time goes by, get a newer one, transfer the data. And some recommend giving it a little exercise, spinning it up like once a year, which I thought was interesting when I heard it from someone who knows a lot about this. The key is to keep it current enough, maybe every 5 years. I can't give an actual number on that. Anything that is a hard copy has to be kept in an environment that won't degrade so fast. Cool and dry environments are particularly good for keeping items from degrading faster, and then you can capture them in some way with digital technology, but it's not the original.
You have a backup business. Passion was spurned out of a personal loss that says, I'll never, ever let this happen again. Tell us an origin story.
One story that's pretty vivid. I did something you should never do. And there's probably people right now listening and has something like this going on. I had a lot of my data on an external drive connected to my laptop. For whatever reason, I had the power cord going across like 3 feet to a wall. It wasn't really hidden well enough. It wasn't taped down properly. My son, maybe 2, 3, 4, walks by one day while it's spinning and he just goes flying onto the ground. So it was a lesson. I had a backup, but if I didn't, it would have been very painful. And that's just one example. At that time, I didn't have any online backups. It's probably 20, 22, 23 years ago. That taught me that it's very important to have a strategy. And if you can make it as effortless as possible, there's a good chance you're going to keep up with it.
Best tools, what you use for a kit that helps you have the raw image, then you might look at it and want to tweak it. And if it's for a customer and they have a certain look they want, you might end up getting rid of stuff in the background or highlighting it or fogging it out or add something else like a logo. What do you use to bring that together? In your daily toolkit, what is your daily toolkit to handle, manage the photographs and make sure they stay archived 100% tight?
One of the things that I generally present to people, whether I'm just chatting with them, if they have any interest in this topic, I have a backup blueprint and it's just a single page. And it has a little map of your computer in the middle and then the drives around, and there's the drives that are important, and then there's your cloud. With regard to hard drives, most people cannot put all of their data on one computer. So you generally have a single hard drive. That's what most people do, especially photographers of any level or anyone who captures video. If you want to do it how I feel is correct, you'll have a mirror of that, always copying to that, always connected, so that if something happens to your first drive, it's probably going to be on the second drive.
Cash flow crunch? OnDeck's small business line of credit gives your business immediate access to funds up to $100,000 right when you need it. Cover seasonal dips, manage payroll, restock inventory, or tackle unexpected expenses without missing a beat. With flexible draws, transparent pricing, and control over repayment, get funded quickly and confidently. Apply today at ondeck.com. Funds could be available as soon as tomorrow. Depending on certain loan attributes, your business loan may be issued by OnDeck or Celtic Bank. OnDeck does not lend in North Dakota. All loans and amounts subject to lender approval.
You'll also have at least one drive that's not connected to your computer at all, no wires, not plugged into a wall due to lightning and things like that. That will also have your data. It might be one day behind, but you want it to be somewhere. You want to have one in the cloud, which has everything that's on your main computer plus anything that's on one of the hard drives, maybe even both of your hard drives. And then there's one more. Depending on what system you have, if you have a Mac, I recommend something called a time machine because it allows you to back up your system, which you can't do easily any other way on the Mac. So if you have some really bad problem with your computer, or you take a flight and it drops, you can take that time machine and you can get a new computer and be up and running with everything that was there before, which is a big deal. And Windows has something similar. So those are all the pieces for the most part. I could also add one more, which is have another drive disconnected that's in someone else's house or business. But I think that's enough for now.
Vaulting it. But for photo editing and managing pictures and printing, what do you use behind those scenes?
I use a MacBook Pro with M3, but personally, I'm using either my own printers, which are Epson and Canon, or I send out if it's over a certain size. I'm using hard drives in their own cases, like Seagate 1, 2, 4, 5 terabyte small thin ones.
Yeah.
And then there's also ones that you have to supply power. Those are generally 3.5 inch. And those are wonderful because they go up to at least 24 terabytes and they're fairly affordable, about $400 as of this recording. And you can either put them in like a sled. There's all kinds of things that you can just pop them in, or you can put them in like a holder. They just drop in and then you have a USB connection. So these are the things that I use primarily. I primarily use the external drive with this sled, and then I use an external smaller drive if I'm traveling. If I just want to bring, let's say, one project, I might bring a smaller external, either SSD or small hard drive.
Wow. Just for our audience sake, can you explain the difference between megs, gigs, and terabytes?
Megabytes is the smallest of the three, and then gigabytes, and then terabytes. These are just different ways of recording the number of bits or amount of information in each of your files. And so a email attachment might be 1 megabyte, and a couple minute video might be 1 gigabyte, and maybe 10,000 photographs would be 1 terabyte. So that gives you a sense of the sizes.
Is there any people who are afraid that the cloud owners, the Googles, that they are going to either delete our data or take it hostage or use it against us?
There's always a problem, mostly with you having your password compromised. That's the biggest problem. I'm not so worried about these big companies, as long as I know who the company is and it's a big responsible company like Apple or Google, I believe that they are not the ones that are going to cause a problem. I believe if your password is compromised, it's a major problem. That's the thing that everyone should really be concerned about with regard to data. But that's why I always have backups that are not connected to a cloud or connected to my computer.
So as we were describing your bio, you mentioned that you were noted in People magazine. How does a small business get into that space? How do they gain that prominence without without being viral or without being throwing into the stick a negative note? How do you get in that space with being a positive?
Each of my tips or information or photographs that have been in major media has been a different story. My favorite story that anyone can do is to sign up for a free service called Quoted, QWOTED.com. And you then put in your interests, let's say photography, maybe it's food, basically the things that you are an expert in. And then you will start getting emails each day. If you approve for them to send you emails, you can go to the website at any time and see the editorial people. There's all kinds of editorial. It could be everything from Newsweek to Time, or I was in Reader's Digest online. And those people are constantly looking for experts to contribute either interviews, you could actually be interviewed, or just a tip, which you can put a quick tip out with your bio. And if it gets picked up, then wonderful. That's what happened in Women's World for me, which is the largest magazine in the United States. Quoted is fantastic, and it's the easiest way to get on major media.
As a man that sells graphics, whether for art or business, what's the biggest mistake the business is doing to muddy up their brand?
If you're a photographer, as I've learned from watching photographers, if you want to do work for the public or for companies, you will generally be able to command the highest rates if you specialize in some way. For example, wedding and portraits. There are many photographers who specialize in wedding and portraits. It's one of the best ways to get into the business once you learn how to do it so that you don't make mistakes and end up having unhappy brides and grooms. But that's a perfect example. The other one is pet photography. Pet photography for many years. I may do it in the future. And I created a specific site called candidcanine.com. And even though I do other things, everything on that site is all about my pet photography. So the more you can focus, even if you have two things that you're really passionate about, I would highly recommend, if they're different enough, I would make separate websites and separate branding on social media.
You're an inventor and you've got a couple of things. I understand you're into toys, not as in owning them and playing with them, but that might be a byproduct of being in that space. What's that whole story? Like, you have the gallery pouch as one item, and you've also talked to me about the toy space. What's the story behind those elements?
Okay, for the gallery pouch, about 15, 16 years ago, I had an exhibition of my flower photography. And when they came down, it was not in a gallery and I wasn't there. A number of the pieces got damaged. I turned lemons into lemonade, and I talked to a gentleman in Dallas, Texas, who makes custom frames and custom mats called Frame Destination. I said, can you make me custom bubble bags for my pieces? So he said, I'll give it a try. He used whatever material he had, whatever sealing machine he had, and it actually worked fine, but it wasn't optimum. We worked together. We found a company. They made us a special combination of bubble and film, and they came up with this really nice heavyweight bubble that we then purchased a machine. I say we, because I feel like a partner, although I'm just the inventor. I helped them along the way. They had this beautiful machine that would create amazing seams. If you've ever had a bag, sometimes the edges are nice, sometimes they're not. But when you're able to really make a nice presentation, which this does, and it's a custom heavyweight bag that can be made in any size, from about the size of an iPad up to a large screen TV, with or without Velcro. So it found a niche in that people up to then, if there wasn't a bag made to a specific size, and at a certain size, there just are no good quality bubble bags. You had to resort to rolls of bubble and tape, which is an absolute nightmare and often leads to a lot of wasted plastic. So this sort of fit that niche. And 15 years ago, there are many hundreds, if not thousands, of customers who are really happy.
What type of toys are you into creating?
Okay, so I love toys. I think I got into that because I was in the invention space, especially on LinkedIn. After I invented the gallery pouch, I started seeing all these people talk about their toys and how they're getting licensed. And I'm saying to myself, I like toys. I have a young son and I could do this. So I learned about it. And then I started attending different events and creating my own toys. At this point, I have about 20 different toys and games, everything from musical games that use electronics to throwing games to card games. And I pitch them, whether they're formal events or at events like the New York Toy Fair. I pitch, and then the goal is to have them license it and then get it out into the world. So that's the goal, and it's exciting and competitive, but I'm really working hard at it.
If you had a choice, I know that card games, especially adult card games, are huge, and role play and all that. We all remember the games of our youth, the Risk, the Monopoly. If you were going to specialize, would you rather have a game for every 8-year-old or a game for...
Cash flow crunch? OnDeck's small business line of credit gives your business immediate access to funds up to $100,000 right when you need it. Cover seasonal dips, manage payroll, restock inventory, or tackle unexpected expenses without missing a beat. With flexible draws, transparent pricing, and control over repayment, get funded quickly and confidently. Apply today at ondeck.com. Funds could be available as soon as tomorrow. Depending on certain loan attributes, your business loan may be issued by OnDeck or Celtic Bank. OnDeck does not lend in North Dakota. All loans and amounts subject to lender approval.
8 adults?
I just create whatever comes to my mind. I really enjoy games that can be played by the whole family, from people from maybe 4 until 114. That age range is my favorite. There are some that require people to read, but for the most part, I prefer the family games for everyone.
The games, the pouch, images. What do you see next in your next 5 years? Are you going to be more into helping people keep their visual history alive and well? Or are you going to be more focused in games, or are you having your hand in several different pots as you go forward?
I have 2 main things that I'm really excited about. Apart from talking about the gallery pouch, there's something in a gallery pouch here that I'll show you, getting me more interested in going back to marketing my photography, which I've been doing 25 years. This is a gallery pouch, and medium size, and inside I have a framed print. And what I've been doing for over 25 years is creating these 18 by 24 inch prints that I use for many different things. I sell them and also give them as gifts, or sometimes if someone purchases a print, I'll include it. Or if I do a photo session, sometimes I'll include a print which people really like. So I'm really moving into doing more fine art photography and uncovering my hundreds of thousands of images to hopefully have my work on more people's walls. I had this vision not long ago. I said, as I keep making these wonderful relationships with people, LinkedIn and through networking, I realized that I can easily create an affiliate network of people who, if they enjoy the work that I'm creating, can tell other people about it and potentially earn some income. I love that concept. I think galleries are wonderful as well, but I particularly like the idea of having my work out there, and anyone who it resonates with can actually become an affiliate. So that's really one of my focuses. That's one side of it. The other side is helping people like I have been for their whole workflow. So I really enjoy helping people if they go on a cruise or a safari and they have more than 10,000 photographs. They love taking pictures with a big camera or phone, but then they get overwhelmed. They don't know what to do. I really enjoy helping with that whole process. If they have space on their wall, or if someone who they care about has space on their wall, or if they want to sell their work, I love helping people make absolutely beautiful, stunning prints.
The picture that you just posed earlier was of a flower. What type of flower is it? And how would you describe that print? In your trade, what verbiage or lingo do you provide to say it is this type of a print?
Okay. That's an iris, purple iris, and it was taken with 35 millimeter film about 30 years ago. I have a story about it. I'll send you the page that has the information. And I had that printed on a truly amazing machine called an indigo press. And this is not like a typical press. Typical 4-color printing is magic, but this takes it another level with regard to the quality and also the longevity of the inks, which is very important to me because if someone puts it on their wall, I would like it to last quite a long time, even if it gets some sun every day. I talk about it a little bit when I sell those particular prints, although most of my sales of prints has been the archival inkjet, which is a pigment based, and depending on what kind of paper you use, you can expect between 40 and 200 years, depending on the amount of light exposure and other things before any noticeable color change or fading.
Have you ever had a corporation said, I think you're an amazing photographer and you'd make our walls much better. I don't want to buy it because I'm a little cash flow. I want to rent our art from you?
What I have done is had people have it on their wall for a certain number of days in a company. They loved it so much, they purchased it. I love that. I love that it could become a little bit costly if a lot is going out, but I like the concept. It worked great in that example. And maybe there could be some type of fee exchanged, but I think that is a wonderful formula. It's try before you buy, if you will.
Wrapping us up here with two kind of closing questions. If you're doing photography, you're doing for product, what are the quick and easy tips to capture the essence of what you're trying to convey? There's a story behind it, and sometimes the verbiage of picture is worth 1,000 words. And how do you make that 1,000 words synchronize with the image? And what advice do you have to someone that is a serial entrepreneur? So it's a two-parter.
Okay. Now you mentioned product. For products, the best advice I can give you is to get of course, it depends what you're photographing, but there are simple light tents that you can get that fold up and look like a suitcase. If you really want to just photograph products, you're not worried so much about fancy backgrounds. Some of them have the lights built in. Those are fantastic in many ways. To keep things simple, you can get a little briefcase light tent if you wanted to put in a keyword for that. Otherwise, you can use a window and then get yourself some foam core for the fill, it's called. So find a window, stick whatever you're photographing in it, maybe on a pedestal or something, and then find an interesting background or use paper. The fill card is just a big piece of white board. It goes on the other side of where the light's coming in from the window, and often you can create absolutely beautiful product photography.
I know for games, you want them to be within a half an hour's drive from you, but on your art and photography business and the pouch, how big is your global reach and how do we reach you?
Okay, so for the pouch, the best thing is just to go to gallerypouch.com. I believe as of today, it's just the 50 US states. However, that may have changed. So I would recommend just either calling or checking. Go to gallerypouch.com and then you can link over to the main site. You'll see me, a younger me, doing a video. You can always ask them if they are shipping to Canada, which I think was one of their goals. The other question you had is with regard to my fine art work or my consulting. Generally, it's a worldwide offering since I can ship anything anywhere, and Zoom, which is my preferred video platform, allows me to talk to anyone. I just may have to get up early or stay up a little late depending on where people live. So if you'd like to get information about how to back up your digital life or anything else related to photography, the easiest place to find me is backup.fm. You can download my backup blueprint there and see some articles and also some podcast episodes. And I also have one other thing that I often talk about if people allow me to. It's a little PSA. It's essentially just a hashtag, but I feel like if I get it out into the world, it can help a lot of people. And that is the hashtag First Day Light Check. And if you put that into almost any social media, you'll see probably a photograph of my son in his little car with one headlight on and one headlight out. And it's just a reminder for people on the first day of each month to check your vehicle's lights, front and back. And it's not that easy to do, so you may need a friend. But I feel like by doing that, I can make the world a little safer.
I want to say thank you to Andrew Darlow, to Wayne Pratt, and you, the Knack for Business listeners. So if you have a photography question, you want to save some old photos, you want to talk about maybe the digital format and saving them and keep them secure, or you want to ship some prints across the nation, across the globe, or reach out to Andrew.
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at info.zoocreativeinsight.com or by the website creativeinsight.com, spelled KREATIVINSIGHT.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayneemotive8u.ca, that is MOTIVE, the numeral 8 and the letter U.ca, or his website motive8u.ca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people. Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert. Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host. Jovan Stricka from Ohive, a co-working space that is more than just a space. Then Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner, and Wayne Pratt from Motive 8U Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer, please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.